I know I get really excited about guests, but this one is probably one of the ones I'm probably the most excited about. I've been trying to get this man for such a long time. He's just been named to the Canadian Australian rules football team for a third time. He's probably the most damaging non-Australian footballer I've ever played with, and I've played with a lot of good footballers. It is Robert Tersigni. Robert, how are you today, mate?
I'm good. Thanks for the intro. That was epic.
Yeah, you got to. I mean, sometimes you have to pump the tires because a lot of people are very humble and they don't pump their own tires like I do. And you're a very humble man, so it was important for me to get your confidence up and really start it off on a positive note.
Well, I'm happy to be here. This is pretty epic to be on this show too.
Now, it's an honor to have you on. So I'm looking forward to this chat. First off, it's Canadian summer at the moment, so you've got about a 4-week window to, I guess, sort of take your snow boots off and really just enjoy life. What have you been doing? What's the Toronto summer looking like for you?
Yeah, it's definitely jam packed. The the footy in the summer in Canada, like in these months, it's like we had a game yesterday that was it felt like it was 39 degrees Celsius. So it's definitely a little bit taxing in terms of actually playing, but um, the some of the other activities have been great. Like been getting out for golf. Like this year, I've been trying to pretend like I'm decent at it. If I lose no more than 20 balls, it's a success story, and I think I've made like one or two good shots this summer, so I definitely am just absolutely hooked into it. And then yeah, just a couple getaways, lots of work. It's been good.
So when the golf bug hits you, you don't fully expect it, but it hits everyone at a certain age, and you realize you're like, I've played golf casually, but once it hits you, you're like, I need this every day in my life.
It's insane. I definitely saw the people and thought, okay, well, the sport is annoying. It's a, a stick hitting a ball, and like, why can't it be easier? And then and then this year, just a few just like went a few times with some of the same guys, some of the same courses, and then you one game, you're like, damn, this is a great putt, or damn, that was a nice tip on, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, okay. So if I just swing this way, or if I do this 3,000 things just in my head once I'm going up to the tee box, and it goes the right way, then like, okay, I'm going to be a pro in the next 3 months. So then you buy like $4,000 of equipment, and then you're hooked. I have like a tipping set, not like the little goofy
The net,
little basket. Yeah, the
yeah.
net. Yeah, and I got a putting green at home that I've used once. Like just hilarious. Like just sunk right in.
Your girlfriend's like, Jesus Christ, you spent $3,000 worth on golfing equipment. What was your last score? And you're like, 115. But before that, it was 125. So I'm improving at a rapid pace.
I told her it's my return on investment on balls. Like I like the yes, I had to spend a lot of money, and yes, you lose balls, and yes, there was nothing that I gained out of it. But the more I play and the more I spend money playing, then the less balls that I lose. So in its own way, it's there's definitely an investment in the long run.
I like the way you think of that. So let's jump away from golf because it'll
Yeah.
probably make me upset because I'm brutal at it, and it's one of the most upsetting things I can really talk about my own golf game. But um, as I mentioned at the top, you've just been picked for the Canadian national team for a third time, which an incredible achievement. But before we
Thanks.
sort of get into that, representing Canada and all that, I actually don't know how you got into football. So I would be interested to know how um, one of the highest rated high school QBs from Toronto, Ontario, finds himself switching sports and instead of throwing, starts kicking.
Yeah, it's actually a fun story. I think this was back in like 2012. I had a close Australian friend who um, we we'd go for drinks and stuff, and I played rugby at the time, and he tried to get me to come out to this Aussie rules football, and I thought it looked just so weird. It looked like Australian Quidditch, and I'm like, I don't think that's a real sport. But he was unsuccessful, and he's a buddy of mine. He didn't try that hard, and then about about a year or so later, um, I meet Damon Bodner, um, who coached the Premiership 2016 Rebels, and then at the time he was family friends with my girlfriend at the time, and he just asked me like, oh, like, do you play sports? I'm like, yeah, we're doing stuff. He goes, okay, well, I'm picking up at 5 p.m. on Tuesday. I'll just be at this corner. I'm like, oh, well, I don't know if I want to. He goes, no, I'll see you on Tuesday. And so he dragged me out, came out to the first practice and just like was so intense. I was just like
Mm.
going way too hard, like trying to like okay, I got this, like whatever, and had no idea what was going on, but like just like ran through the drills and stuff, and then asked all the questions. Really good club, so they were giving me a lot of the answers, and then yeah, a few weeks in, like just like fell in love with it, like the first goal in training, and you're like, oh damn, like this is what you do here, and yeah, sunk right in. Played that first year, and um, I definitely didn't have much of a skill base under me at that point. So I relied on uh, probably some of my anger issues at the time, just hitting guys and dump tackling and doing all the things you're not supposed to do in footy. But for Canadian footy, that's still okay
It's
because the ball's
acceptable.
on the ground more than yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite things was like I remember when I absolutely fell in love with the sport was the ball. This guy came up to me. I stump tackled him. Like I thought it was a clean tackle, and then he goes like, "What the hell is this? What the fuck are you doing?" I'm like, "Bro, I just tackled you. You had the ball, like whatever." And he's like, giving me some shots with the pin. I'm like, "Oh, this is what you're allowed to do." Like, so I'm grabbing his jersey, I'm hitting the back, and then the umpire just threw the ball in the middle of us, and then we had to like either go for the ball or keep fighting. So we went for the ball. And I'm like, "What a sport! Like that's so good. Like most sports here, it's like you get 3 games suspension. You can't be doing that, like whatever." So just like it felt like such a like raw sport,
Mm.
and like a good mixture of everything that I've ever played growing up. So um, yeah, had a lot of fun. I think marking was kind of like my like the one thing I was confident in from the beginning. Kicking took a while, but kicked a few goals, and I won Rookie of the Year for the whole all of Ontario for that first year.
There we go.
Um, yeah, so it was great, and that like obviously when you do that, you just like feel so accomplished in something, and I think I spent maybe 2 or 3 years out of like team sports like at a high level, and to jump in that was pretty awesome. So yeah, that took me into I actually I want to mention the fact that in my first year I had a coach Con Caravas, I think say his last name, and he played pretty high level in Australia, like one of the best players I've ever played with,
Mm.
and he was the coach at the time, and him and a really great friend of mine, Michael Prendergast, they spent a lot of time like hey, Tuesday midday, do you want to do this? Friday midday, you want to do this? Just working through picking drills and like running back and forth and trying to like get my timing. Timing was like such a massive thing there, or like picking the ball off the ground, and those guys spent like a lot of time. So so that like that built not only my footy foundation, but it built some great friendships. And I actually, when Michael Prendergast, Patty, moved back to Australia, I went and just booked a flight and went and saw him in 2015, and I played for Blackburn for 2 months,
Mm.
which was hilarious. And I love telling the story too because I was like 24 at the time or something, and I had played sports growing up, and I was quite good at the sports that I played, like captain, whatever. And to go to that level, and then to go to where I thought, oh, it's like, oh, rookie of the year, like I know the sport so well, whatever.
I'm
To go
unreal at
play at
this.
Blackburn, yeah, oh my God, go to play at Blackburn, and they for the reserve team, and mind you, Blackburn in that league, the EFL, is like top two, I think,
Mm.
out of Australia, so it was quite the comp, but it put such a level of perception, perspective there of like you you don't you, you don't know anything until you go over to where like something was
Mm.
originated. And I remember I had like 18, 19-year olds like, nice kick, Rob, nice kick, kid, like good job. I'm like,
Re-
I could
really
throw a
just
ball over that now. Yeah, no,
Really
Um,
just to like demoralizing like
oh,
encouragement.
just to bring you back down to earth, and you're like, okay, I ain't shit. So I learned so much in just those 2 months, and I actually ended up playing a lot of reserve games,
Mm,
which was awesome. There's actually a moment where the coach of the reserves at the time, he had like I think it was halftime, and he had said like, and kid, nice intensity. He's going through the huddle. He's like, kid, nice intensity. I'm like, thanks, coach. And then everyone just pissed themselves laughing. And like just like jumping into the Australian culture,
you don't
they
call
were
him
all like,
coach.
oh, like, and just like how it's so like that's so football, or that's so
Yeah.
like American culture, and I was like coach is like number one, like that's how I grew up, and
Mm,
so when I said that, like just like this uproar, I'm like, oh shit, I gotta figure out where I am right now. Like
yeah.
it's it was quite a good learning curve. And then yeah, had a great time there, and then just been grinding for the Rebels ever since.
I have two questions. Now, when you first watch Australian rules football as a someone who's never seen it before, like what's going through your mind? Because like a really good buddy of mine from Kitchener, Andrew, I used to make him watch these games after we'd had probably a little bit too many Captain Morgans. And
Yeah,
he was like, what the fuck are we watching? He goes, this is the most confusing thing I've ever seen. Like, what was your, I know rugby's not, there's no game sort of similar to it, but like you obviously with a rugby background, you've got some, I guess, from the kick mark, whatever kind of perspective. But like, what was your first instinct of like actually watching these games?
yeah. No, I think I think the funny thing about like usually those games play on TSN 4, but at like
Mm,
4 a.m. here,
yeah, yeah,
so
it's late as.
it's super late. So if you're up that late, you're usually split
Yeah,
because the
and
SU and you're
yeah,
and
I am.
yeah, exactly. So I think the first couple times I watched it was just at the bar, and I'm like looking at the screen, going, "I need to go home. I've drank too much."
That's your clock. That's like
That's
your
my clock. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm
Rather
like,
than
oh,
the
I go, yeah, the
rather than
rugby's starting to
Mrs.
look a little
saying
funky again.
rather than Mrs. saying, "Hey, you need to get home," you're like, "Oh shit, the AFL's on." Like,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
in trouble.
100%. No, it's I think like I said, I think the first time I looked at it, I genuinely thought it was some sort of like Quidditch, like they were replicating like, oh, they turned this into a sport, and it just I looked at it, didn't pay too much attention. When I tried, I was like, my brain can't
Mm.
comprehend this, and then I just didn't know what it was. So I think a couple times when I'd watched it, I was like, you don't get to see some of the bigger hits because they're so crafty and they're so good at their sport that it's not the same kind of hits you get like over here where it's just like absolute power drivers. And then I think one time I watched it and I saw like these two guys just absolutely dumb each other, and then they get up and start throwing bombs. And then I was like, oh my god, what is this sport? And
And
obviously
how do I play it?
he's throwing bombs at each other. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, my first impression was definitely like, this is a weird looking sport. I definitely didn't think it was a real sport.
Yeah, no, honestly, it really isn't. When you think about it from a term in terms of like looking at a new sport for the first time, you're like, oh yeah, this I can understand how this. But you watch AFL for the first time, and you're like, what? Where are the brooms? Like, like
It was,
what? Like, honestly, what is going on? Which is
yeah,
funny because I have like a well, it's not a similar like I played ice hockey here, which obviously that's
yeah,
Canada's like main sport, and
mhm,
I had a very similar moment to probably what you described, like playing at Blackburn. So I met a guy who's from Calgary, played a really good level of junior hockey in Calgary. I'm pretty sure he played in the WHL. And every time I went to Calgary, because I used to go there every year, he's like, bring your gear. He's like, I'll take you to, we'll go play pickup or whatever. And I was like, oh, sick. I'm like, I've been playing hockey for like, like 6 years. I'm like, I'm unreal in this. I didn't think I was unreal, but I was like,
you hold
oh,
your own.
I was pretty happy with my size profile. And
Yeah, nice.
then so I get out west and all of these guys were, I was like, I'm like, oh, these guys are big. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
thank God it's not non-contact. But I spent like, I bought like a $300 stick the day before because I was like, you can't really
Good.
get that in Australia. I was like, this is what's been holding me back. And I just remember like the first shift I had, it's like real relaxed, scrimmagey kind of a flow. And someone set me up for a one timer, which would have been like just perfect. And I was like, I've never done one of these before. I'm like, it's a perfect time to try. And I whiffed on it super hard. The stick broke in my hands, and I ended up like,
No.
because I had leant so hard on the stick, I went down and smashed my head like on the ice. And I'm like, what a great first impression. I'm like, I was in like locker room saying, I've been playing hockey for ages, and these guys are like, whoa, wolf.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was a
But yeah.
real that was a real eye opener because I
That's
was like, all of these guys are so good and I am so bad.
well, and it makes such a big difference because you like even a few years, like even at this point now, playing footy for I guess yeah, about like 8 years. I definitely have like a really good sense of the game. I definitely know where things are supposed to be. But like when there's a guy who's even 10 years younger than me, like I could see he knows certain things that I don't, and I may never, or may not for another 10 years because growing up with that ball in your hands or with the puck on the ice and you're like
Mm,
5 and you're skating. Like I used to go to public rinks and I'm not a good skater. I'm the worst Canadian there is actually with some of the like actual winter sports.
mm,
But I had kids like 5, 6 years old, just like absolutely dicing through everyone, like in the crowd, like just going through everyone and like it was nothing. And they grow up thinking like they don't think about their feet, so then they're only focusing on their skills, and
mm,
then they don't think about where like they don't think about their soccer, they don't think about their like the flick. They just think, where am I putting this or where am I going next? So like the stuff that you don't have to think about anymore is so important when you're growing up. And like I think that's where like, well, golf is, we won't bring up golf, but like the sports where the things that you don't think of, like in footy, like if you stop thinking about where to be because you already know where to be, or you
mm.
stop thinking about how to kick the ball because you know how to kick the ball, then you think about where am I kicking the ball and like how am I kicking the ball. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's a hard lesson to learn. And yeah, that especially when you go up against guys who've been playing their whole entire lives and then they have
Mm.
size, you're like, okay, these guys aren't even like they may not even be like close to being professional at all, but like they play at high levels growing up.
Yeah. I think a really good example for that is a former teammate of ours, Tom Melbourne, I'm going to call him.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
and I'm not going to disrespect him by saying he was never played at a high level because he's like one of the best guys I've played with. But I think what just
yeah,
shows that perfect example of someone who's like played his whole life, like you see him play in the midfield and he destroyed it, but then he could go forward and kick like 8 goals. Like, and that's
yeah,
just
big
that
time.
thing that he might not be a natural forward, but he just knows. He knows
Yeah,
where to
yeah,
go. He knows where the ball's going and all that sort of thing. And it's just like, especially when you're talking about like a developing, I'm not going to say developing country because like obviously there's a lot of history that's come out of Canada, which I'm going to, if in terms of AFL, which I'm going to get to next. But it's that it's just that I guess that craftiness that you sort of
yeah.
like players might lack, even though they've got the like athletic side of the game down.
Hmm. Yeah, big time. Yeah, I think it's just like big brain. Like you knowing so much of the sport is like
Mm,
knowing every single position. That
mm,
is something that like I probably know 7 positions on the field like to their extent, and like that's for playing this long and jumping into different spots like in different areas. But knowing exactly what this, like I remember actually when like Con actually brought me to the VFL facility. Which one was it? Essendon. When
Essendon,
they
yep.
when they built their new one, and there was they just like in the middle of training, like they were running around and stuff. We were watching how everything was going in practice, and then they did this drill where they had all these the like fluorescent jerseys that went out and they had different numbers on it,
Mm,
and then put it all back in the bag, and then everyone just like has to run over, grab a random one, put it on, and then whatever that number was, they had like 30 seconds to set up, and then
Mm,
play in that position. So you could have a forward playing like center bounce, you could play in the back line, and then like they have to know where everything is, and like that's like just to have that knowledge is like so key, like because you know every inch of the field.
yeah.
So that's yeah, like they start thinking like, how am I going to get creative? So it's just such a big brain like that you have from playing it or having the experience for playing it your whole life.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Speaking of big brains, do you know that Canada has a premiership player and a first overall draft pick in the AFL?
Um, no, I did not know
Okay, so I was going to say, do you know who the players are?
that. Wasn't there one? There was one a couple of years ago for it was for Essendon, no?
So yeah, so Andrew McGrath was born in Mississauga.
Yeah,
He's a
yeah,
first overall pick, and Mike Pike, who is a full blown Canadian, won a premiership for Sydney. I'm not sure where
right.
Mike Pike's from. I'm gonna say Ottawa. I don't know
He
why.
seems like he was a big dude with a massive leg, right?
He was
Didn't
he was
didn't,
huge. Like it was
yeah,
scary big. Yeah. So
that's
there you go.
that's sick. That's pretty cool.
So
That's pretty massive, yeah.
like there's not a lot of countries who can say they have a premiership player and a first overall pick outside of obviously
No,
Australia, but Canada's holding its own.
I like that. That's that's some good day. It's something to look forward to too for the younger guys.
It shows I do my research.
That's very good. Yeah, yeah. I need to do more of that.
Let's talk about representing Canada. So mentioned a bunch of times, 3 times now. You've got a game coming up, I believe next week. What I want to know is, I know that this is, you've sort of grew up playing football, whatever, and you're always good at sport. This might not have been I guess, the sport that you envisioned, say, pulling on the Maple Leaf jersey, but what's that sort of sense of pride like when, you're acknowledged as you're one of the best 22 in the country playing this sport, and you do get a chance to represent Canada?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what's really cool about um my timeline with footy is that I love sports. Like sports is what I grew up on. Whenever I feel depressed, something it's probably because I'm not part of a team sport. Because you just need that, and
Yeah.
it's and like to go from like fantasy football in the fall or something like you just need something that has something to do with sport because it's just so
Mm,
exciting and there's just like so many variables. But I think the cool thing is I definitely thought that I was gonna go somewhere with like gridiron football. Like I growing up, I'm like, man, I loved it. Like loved being quarterback. Like had an arm, and then you get to a certain point, you're like, I'm not even close to even like being a
mm,
breath on any of that. So you like you hit some like hard realizations of like no matter how good you are, like there are such small pools to choose from. And I think the really cool thing was me falling in love with footy first. Like when football was always my number one growing up, basketball, rugby number two, like volleyball, like loved different sports and like had to rank them, whatever. And then for footy to just take over so quickly and like just because it has everything you want out of a sport, like there are so many things that you need different sport knowledge for to play this better. Um, and then the team building, like just like the team itself, that'll made me really love the sport. So the first time I had been talked to about joining Team Canada, I was like, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I was over the moon.
mm,
I was like to represent my country is amazing. Like I got fairly close to rugby, and I didn't stick it through, and I think I think once I got that call up saying like, yeah, we want to choose you, and I went to Fort Lauderdale the one time to play against the U.S. I remember being there like I'm wearing my flag,
mm.
I'm like I'm representing everything you look forward like on TV, and you're like, oh, like I made some Canada, that's awesome, like a part of this, like representing your country is so special. So for me, it's like such an honor, and like the last when we went to Australia in 2017 for the International Cup, one of the coolest moments, and I like I'm staring at it like in the face right now, is we played New Zealand, who ended up winning that year, and they did the haka on us. They
Oh wow.
We lined up, and I have goosebumps now talking about it. But
Mm,
just like it got me so jacked up, which is supposed to
mm,
intimidate you, but it got me so jacked up, and it made me play so much better because it just made me realize where I was. Like looking across at 22 guys that also got chosen to play for the country,
mm,
and the fact that each one of them had to be that special to be on that team, and then lining up beside guys that you just started building like friendships with. Maybe you're rivals with some of them. Like I
mm.
have a few guys that on Team Canada that when I play against them in our league, like I hit them extra hard. Like, and then when they're on the same side, we just like want to win so hard together. And like for the first guys that picked you, so it's a cool and surreal feeling of like just being like just screaming the national anthem and going like
Mm.
that's my fucking country now. Like this is win, lose or draw. Like you're here. So it one of the bigger accomplishments I've had in my life, like just in general, just because I think sport is such a massive part of my life. So to get to that level is just such an honor. Like I love having the jerseys like in like just in my possession, like
Mm.
seeing my number on the jersey, just like all of it is really special.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Do you hate the US? Like,
I
is it a deep hatred?
You know what? It's I think I hate them because I, I haven't beat them personally,
Mm.
um and yeah, on the field they fuck they're just
Are
they're
they
really
good?
athletic. They're they're good. They probably I would say that our team is for sure more passionate, and I think we have better footing knowledge. I
Mm.
think they have a very good gene pool to pick from where these guys are like flying around on the field, and like they had one guy picking out from the back line, and he was hitting like the middle of the square like every single time that we got up behind. So it's there's just guys like they picked like punters, they had like sprinters, like there's just so much that they put together.
Mm.
So they have a pretty good squad. So to beat them would be pretty epic. I would say it's quite the rivalry. I actually I think that I think it is for them as well. I think there's that like cross border, like we both are taking over a sport that's on the other side of the world, and
Mm.
we want to know who's the better of the two countries on this side.
Yeah, and it's going to be televised on CBC, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, CBC. Yeah,
Which is like I mean, that in itself is like a huge deal for people who aren't familiar with Canadian TV. CBC is probably like a Channel 7 or Channel 9 like here in Australia. Like, so it's a massive deal that this is actually being broadcast.
it's amazing. It's like kudos to the guys who got that organized, to Brett and Jacob. The previous tournaments or the other games that I played for, we that is on YouTube. Like there's films and stuff, which is great, but it's once you get that like actual broadcast and you know there's like different angles and like they're gonna actually have
Mm.
some commentary, it makes it so much like more of a real and legit thing, which is really cool to see. I think
Yeah,
it's
no,
something that
100,
I'll probably look at in years from now.
depending on how you play.
Depending on how I play, yeah, I might burn that Japan.
No, that's incredible. So, um, for those who are watching the video, you're wearing a Toronto Rebels polo, which is, in my humble opinion, the best sporting club in the world. It's easily the best club, or the club that's left the biggest impression on me, personally, in terms of club culture and just overall enjoyment. Talk a little bit about being the club, being involved at the club, and being the captain of the club, because I can only imagine that that's a pretty another incredible achievement or honor.
You know what? It's I'm really happy you asked this after the Team Canada question, because I think it's important to say that like playing for my country is such an honor and I absolutely love it. But I I think you're absolutely right. This squad has done so much for me that when I when I got the call to be captain, and I took it over from the great Scuba, um, it's it's one of the best things that's ever happened to me. I absolutely love this club. There's been so much that's come out of this club. I wouldn't even think about Team Canada if it weren't for the guys that stuck with me, and that's saying a lot because there's clubs in this league that they're great, like good camaraderie, like they do well, they might win some premierships, but none of them have what we have, which is just it's a brand. Like it's so ingrained into everyone. Once you throw that jersey on for the first time and you're a Rebel, and everyone gets around you and they throw the water on you, you sing the song, and you're like, oh man, like this is fun. This is like people are going hard here, like and like the things to play for. You start off going, oh, what's this like pretty intense league that's like a house league maybe, or maybe it's a sport, and then you get on that field and you see the intensity and you see everyone's face and how locked in everyone is and how focused they are and the numbers of training and how intense that gets, and then you go out and you play your ass off and everyone's bleeding at the end of the game. I don't remember the last time I walked off the field without an injury, and like that coming off that and wanting to play the next game and wanting to win with that to play with that team or win that season, but then like getting off the field and right away everyone switches on to their next task, which is like having an epic time together, which in itself is so important. Like the amount of friendships, brothers, sisters, the amount of people that I now have a family through the Rebels is untouchable. It's it's just such an honor to be anywhere part of that lineage. Like just throw that C on my chest and be a part of something throughout the Rebels history, because it'll be here forever. And I love that. Like I love that I was in there somewhere. Winning that premiership in 2016 was the best fucking weekend of my life. Like, and I say weekend for a reason. I my body's probably still recovering from the few days after the win. But the things that I got from that were like the Rebels gave me Australia. Like I would have never gone to Australia. I thought that it was being run by a bunch of like mass and spiders or something.
It is.
Like, I just really
and me.
Well, and I didn't want to tell everyone else because I still want people to travel over there, but I can confirm that wasn't the case. But no, I just like I didn't have an interest to go over there, and then I've gone there a few times. I've been in like a friend's wedding. Like there's so many special moments. Like my girlfriend and I, we lived there for 2 years. Like that all came from the Rebels, and then I got set up, and we stayed at Pendleton, a Rebel. I've done part of Blackburn. There's a couple of Rebels involved. Con went back to Blackburn, like Rebel. There's so much that is just like spread across the world. Like there are people in England, there are people in Vietnam. There's guys who are on the chat and they're talking about like, hey, if anyone wants to come here, like come stay here. Like there's a winery in Sydney that you can go visit that's owned by Rebels. Like that's so amazing to think about. Like that's a squad that was originated in 1990 in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, for an Australian football club. So yeah, the Rebels I think is the most extraordinary club that I've ever seen on any level. And I've played in some phenomenal teams, but it's just unmatched.
No, I couldn't have said that any better. I mean, I only played 3 games there and I got knocked out in one of them by a teammate, but I think probably for me, when I first moved to Canada, I met Josh, the infamous Josh Hegarty, who played at the Rebels and was in that premiership team, and he tried to get me down, and I was very hesitant because I never really was good at footy, never really liked playing it, and just had no involvement in the club for my first year when I was over there, and it was a pretty brutal year all round for me, and I just had a real, not like a, I don't even know what you would call it, but I sort of went into the next year and I was like, you've got 1 year left in your visa. Let's just make it a good one. And the best thing I did was go to that club, and all of the people there, like, I still post on the chat, even though it's been like 3 years now, like it's 1 year for each game I played, but it was just such a special half of that year that I was there, putting on the infamous 33, kicking 3 goals too. and then being knocked out by probably the man I love the most in the team in was. But it really was just such a different experience for me, and I wasn't sure what footy was going to be like in Canada. You just think you're like, oh, this is going to be a laugh, like this is going to be embarrassing, but it's so different. And you're right, like when you get on the field, like you're like like I don't know, it's like white line fever or something. You're just like, you're just yelling at other guys, and you're just like, what am I doing? Like I've turned into
Yeah.
a snap show again.
Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was, I remember one training session we had at like Bickford, which is like just the biggest pile of shit. And it was like torrential rain, like just brutal torrential rain. And we were doing this like 5-star handball drill. And I think Fabs was like, we're not leaving until we do this properly. And I was just like
Yeah.
screaming my head off. And there was like new guys coming to the session for like the first time. And they're probably like, is this guy like, is he okay? Like
It's so
he's
good though.
some serious, like he's working at some serious issues here. I'm just like
Yeah. Yeah.
screaming at the top of my lungs, like while it's pouring down rain and we're just trying to get 10 handballs done correctly. It's just a very,
How
a
good is
very
that though?
fun
Like,
memory.
yeah. I mean, like that right there though. Like think about just that level of commitment. Like you're talking about the field had rocks and sticks on it. Like it still does.
Oh,
Like
we
it's a
literally
stiff
would,
field. Yeah,
before the session, we literally would do a sweep of it
picking them
to
off. Yeah,
which is
and like
wild.
without fail, you're gonna step in a pothole. You're gonna
Yeah.
roll something, whatever. And then it pisses down rain, and then you have the hill there, and we call that Dre's Hill
Yeah.
because one of the teammates just ran that until he lost like 60 pounds. But we us doing that and like everyone having that same goal and going, we're doing this together as a team. And there was no guys going, fuck this. It's just like it's just the rebels. It's just a whatever. Like everyone was so focused on we need to get this right. We need to get that handball right. We need to make sure we're running through this. We're doing punishments. All of a sudden these guys step up out of nowhere. We're like, I got a guy who's like on his first year screaming like transition, and he calls everyone out for like there was no talk in the back, and then I'm sitting down and going, oh my god, this is amazing. Like guy bought in. Like just seeing that is just such a cool that moment when you see someone go, fuck, the Rebels is like that's something special. And for you, like screaming on the field, like I don't think it's because you're like you like have like you want footy to be perfect always. It's because you were passionate about like I want this to get done. I want us to be better. I want everyone to get better. I want us to like complete this goal, which is awesome. That's why, yeah, I
No,
love this team.
yeah, and I think that like from a large part that I love seeing people who are like passionate about like getting better, because I know that was me. I know that was me growing up playing hockey because it was so hard and we have like one rink, and you kind of
Mm,
feel like you don't feel like a bit of a dick when you're asking for help, but like you're going up to someone who is not like a professional, but you just know they've played the game their whole life, and they know these little things, and you're just asking them, you're like, hey, like how do you do that? You kind of feel like a little bit of a dick. You kind of feel a little bit like vulnerable in that situation, because like to them it's probably like, what do you mean? It's like just do it. But I
oh yeah,
genuinely love I genuinely loved seeing like I loved seeing the guys like you. Uday is a perfect example, someone who's
Uday,
representing
yeah,
Canada as well for the first
yeah,
time. What an absolute savage animal on the field. Like
I love
the
him.
a pressure pig, as I like to call certain
Right,
people, but someone who's always saying, hey, I'm gonna go down for a kick, whatever. Just someone who's just busted his ass and got like just literally has earned his spot like in the Canadian team. And it's just like stuff like that which you really love to see.
big time. I think and just quickly touching on Uday there because I'm unbelievably proud of this guy who when I was in Australia he had joined the club and I had come in 2019. I think he had been playing for a year, and he the first thing he said was, "Oh, so you're the kid?" I was like, okay, at least I'm still relevant somehow. Like it's been a couple of years, but
I've still got
um,
it.
yeah. And then right away, I think he asked me a couple questions, like one of the trainings, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I love that I just spent some time to like worked really hard there and like learned a ton. And now I'm hoping to like give some of that back. And and the guy's work rate on the field is like top five, like
Mm,
that I've seen. He just is sprinting everywhere at all times. And he'll also take things on the chin. If I tell him, hey, you need to do this, like you need to do this, you need to do this, he's like, okay, cool, like this, like I'll do this on this one, and then he wins best and fairest last year. Like that's
mm,
his his progression in the last few years is just insane. Like and he the connection him and I have, which I'm really excited for next weekend, is he we really listen to each other and we really like look. I look to see. I know how he's coming out of the pack. I know when he's gonna take his 2 steps and kick. I know like when to go for my lead,
mm.
and he trusts me. He trusts me where he'll just pick it to me even if he sees like 2 guys on me.
Yeah.
Because I told him that I said I want you to pick to me, and like
Mm,
any forward would say.
yeah.
And I said just like go put him out. I'm going to catch the ball, and then yeah, him and I connected a million times last year, and we've been connecting more and more just from that connection. So his work rate and the way he's taking in the sport is incredible. I think that I
Mm,
think it's one of the fastest I've seen, and then his commitment and passion, but like probably the best teammate overall that I've ever played with. Like he'll come off the field and he'll be the first to ask like someone who put their pinky on the field, like, hey, how's it going? Do you need anything? And then he'll actually follow up. He'll go bike over and bring like ice and snacks. Like he just goes the extra mile. He's a really good guy. And I think Team Canada for him is like it's well earned.
mm.
Not deserved. I think it's well earned. Yeah.
Yeah, here, here. There is one thing that I can't let you get away with, the fact that you are truly a forward because of the fact that if you don't get the ball, you're not happy. And I noticed this once because I passed it to you and I kind of got like this like because I heard you, like I could hear you like asking for the
Yeah.
ball and
Yeah.
I gave it and it was kind of like you kind of gave me like a look, a nod, maybe a wink of like kind of like that's how it's done here. Like, and I was
Okay.
like,
Good.
all right, I'm like, I guess I'm fucking passing it to this guy.
Oh, that's good.
If this here I am, I've been
Yeah.
playing footy my whole life, and this guy is just gonna bully me.
Canadian kid. Yeah. Just
This
like, hey,
Canadian
give me
kid's
the
gonna
fucking ball.
bully me if I don't pass him the ball.
I I I think I think one of my favorite things because I always just try to be someone who's learning the sport at all times, and I love finding new things to like new techniques. Bod, who is like one of the best coaches I've ever had in my entire life for any sport. When gave me he gave me nothing, like just like he wanted me to just prove myself more and more, and like he played some mind games with me, like which I respect, and I'm like, fuck, that made me way better. But we'd be in the middle of like practice, and we did this thing called Jacko Drill, where like you remember when we had like me and someone else on the other side, like going for marks, and then we had 2 guys
Yeah.
streaming down, and then like kicking back. And he stood back there one practice, and I must have done like 50 reps. He wouldn't let me leave. He's like, I'm gonna keep doing this until you fall over, like, and running back. And like what I thought I knew, and at that point I was like, oh no, I'm really good at marking. I'm really good at like
Mm,
leading. Like I know when to hold my leads. What he exposed there was you need to hustle back when you're not getting used that first time.
mm,
And then I found out like, okay, I catch that ball, I stump it off, and I have to sprint back and get to that marker again. I'm not just gonna
mm.
half-ass it and go halfway and then like do like 10 steps. And like those things you pick up and you learn that you're not the shit. Like I think that's the coolest thing that I've found throughout this sport, where some other sports I maybe hit my peak in that pool, like playing high school in like a small rural area where maybe I was one of the better like quarterbacks or like or rugby, like you feel like you're really good
Mm,
on the outside linebacker. I scored like the most tries, and then all of a sudden you go in the next pool and you're like I'm the smallest uh, back there is on the field.
yeah.
But this sport just like it hits you in ways where you're like, oh, I've learned everything. Like I know the sport now, and then you just like, oh, like I ain't fit. Like
I
there's
have
another
not.
guy that's better. I need to get better. I need to be that next person. So
Mm,
you get humbled a lot, which is important, I think. And if you're willing to get humbled and learn from that, I think that's where you become a great footy player and or just a great athlete. So
mm.
I think overall that's where I want to always get better. I want to always like have this confidence where I do feel like if someone's kicking me the ball, I'm going to catch that ball. But I need to learn how to find when I'm going to hold my lead, when I'm going to be the dummy lead, when I'm going to come back and throw a shoulder into Fazzi's, the guy defending Fazzi. Like
Mm.
there's so many things to learn every year, every game that is really surprising. So.
Yeah, no, I think that's why coaching is so important because of the fact that the game is when you're picking up a new game, it's very easy for you to the ball's the object. It's very easy for you to just be absorbed by the ball. But
Mm-hmm.
like what you just mentioned there with like leads, there's like so many, especially when you're talking about becoming a forward, like there's so many like little small things that you need to sort of learn is like doing a dummy lead. So you're creating space for, another forward, or you're coming back and you're going to check. You're gonna cut across like that guy's defender to create the space, and it's just like the little things like that which are away from the ball, have nothing to do with the ball is so hard to pick up, and it's like one of those things that you can't do it overnight, and it's just one of those coaching things that you really need really good coaches, and I think we've been the incredibly like lucky with the coaches with Fabs and Bods, just how good football minds they are, and like how they create, I guess, a system because the system that they use is not like a typical AFL system, but it's one that helps. It helps these people who are starting out in the game so much more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. And I think what you were saying, like even when you were like asking questions and stuff when you were like growing up, like trying to play hockey, like that level of like someone trying, someone who's been playing for their whole life, and then actually trying to explain something that I don't think they can because it's so wired into the system, and they just it's just so natural. Is like I can't think of an example, but like you would ask a question like, yeah, like let's say like when you're taking the ball, like why are you following through? Like why can't you just stab or whatever?
Mm,
Like and someone's like, well, you want to just do this. Like there's like dumbing it down is like that's what I love now that I get to do that for some of the Canadians is
mm,
I had to figure out some things like that guys who were very good at coaching couldn't even explain to me because it was just so beneath like that level of like the basic level. It was like just like the natural parts of the game that I didn't have. So finding ways to teach other guys that I can see the rugby guys when they transition over, and I can see some of the things that they're doing that like they need to stop shifting their hips to the side to kick the ball like you would in
mm,
rugby, or like here's your adjustment, here's what you need to start doing, and you need to do it and make you feel very uncomfortable for the first 100 or 200 reps. Then it'll come around. But those it's cool to be able to like do that now as a bit of an older player going, okay, these young Canadians, they have a different learning, it's a different learning curve or a different learning path than some people who've been playing it for a while. So the coaching staff is just like, we've been, yeah, like you said, like I've been so fortunate. I had Con kind of basically put the structure together and really worked on like the schematics of footy, and then Hodge was obviously like a great mixture of both. I think he really incorporated like his captaincy of you work your ass off on that field, and we ran a lot that year, and then you work your ass off off the field, and we make sure we party hard and we earn our beers.
mm,
And then Fab, some of the probably some of the most passion I've seen from anyone who that guy loves the Rebels more
mm.
than most. You can see when he gets emotional, just talking about something that's both positive or negative, and it just like has something to do with like creating the best club. So it's it's been such an fortunate road for me with the team for sure.
Yeah, no, well said. I'm going to throw you under the bus here. I'm going to ask you for your favorite and least favorite teammate, and I'm good. Don't worry, I'll answer it too. And we are
Okay.
going to get least favorite teammate because I wonder if we're going to have the same answer.
Okay. Okay.
I'll let you go first with the favorite.
Favorite. Okay. Favorite teammate. I would actually say eBay. I think there's I think over the years I've had amazing teammates and like guys who've lasted a few years, guys have been here for a year and made such a big impact. Digga's obviously a massive vote there. Like kind of like some of the guys who just like really made a good impact on the team and for the brand. But I think Uday himself is just like someone who like he wants to do everything for everyone else
Mm,
and like what a teammate. Like so I think I have to pick him. Yeah.
that's a good choice. Mine's was, and it's very easy, despite the fact that he ran through me and pretty much ruined my last few weeks in
Yeah.
Canada, but knocking me into oblivion. But there's just something about that man that
He's
I can't
amazing. I
I
love
can't
it.
I can't not love. I'm gonna tell this, I'll tell a story.
Yeah.
Um, so there was a bunch of us that went to see Florence and the Machine, and it was at the Budweiser stage, that massive outdoor, I think that's what it's called.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I was arm in arm with listening to, I couldn't even tell you if it was Florence or not. And there were these there were these two ladies who just started screaming at us because we were just like talking, and they basically were not happy that we were ruining a spiritual moment, like
Oh
despite
no.
the fact that we were literally arm in arm, hugging each other and dancing. It just was an absolute, just a shit show. And unfortunately, a massive apology to those two ladies because we did ruin a really spiritual and beautiful moment, apparently. But I was on a different province that night. I was not well, but
Well,
I,
I'm hoping I'm hoping if they tune in, they get to understand like the backstory between you guys and I think that might help them like get through that a little bit more, like maybe make it a better memory for them.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. That's why I wanted to share the story because it was a very special moment for us as well. Like
Yeah.
we were connecting on different levels, and they didn't know that, they didn't know the backstory. So he's my favorite teammate.
I love love.
eh, he he's the best. Now your least favorite.
Well, I think I think as a as a good captain, I gotta say no one here. Um,
Mm, I'm not
I'm worried
captain.
about your answer.
I'm
I
not
was gonna
captain,
say,
so I can't answer this diplomatically.
okay, let's
Um,
do it.
Danny Keegan, Jesus
He's the
Christ,
worst. Yeah, he's the
just
worst. You're right.
self-proclaimed nickname of the wizard. Just the stuff he used to say was so painful. The laser show, just the hissy fit he threw when I wore
It
number 33, like an all time
still hurts
hissy
him.
fit.
No,
Probably because I played well
I
in
think
it.
it still hurts him. I think there's been a guy who's kicked better percentage in that jersey.
Yeah, he's still got the
You know
monkey
what he
on the
made me do?
back.
He made me do yesterday. He made me turn on his lasers before he got like he was coming on the field for a sub, and he
Oh,
turned around and he told me to turn his lasers on
oh my god, this
before
is
he
a
went on the
grown
field.
man too. You should point out they're just
He had
a
a 40
very
assist year. Like he's
oh
yeah he should be just yeah. So you're right. No, I you know what I usually would disagree. Obviously, I want to make sure that I'm just like being pretty neutral, but you couldn't be more right. He's
just
probably the worst.
a very hard person to just really associate with, just too much. But I'm that probably the only teammate I didn't enjoy playing with, really. So
Well,
I'm glad I got that off
it
my
was big.
chest.
It was a big rivalry because of the number. I feel like it's yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm glad you did too. I'm sorry about that because he's still part of the squad and
Mm,
he's wearing your number.
that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
I guess moving forward, you've sort of touched on how important it is, I guess, being that leader and being captain. What do you sort of see your football your football journey sort of going from here?
Yeah, for sure. I think at this point, like this year has been overall like both life and rebels, like things have been moving into directions where I've worked really hard and gotten to the next spot, but that also means it's a lot of work. So it all happening at the same time has been eye opening of like what you can really take on and what this role that means to me. Like I put a lot of pressure on myself, so sometimes I have to check in with like Fabs and some of the guys, and they're like, "No, you're doing great." Like I'm like, "Well, I missed these practices of work," or something like. Just kind of give it everything I can for everyone. I really find that to be important to me, and I really want to make sure that people go out there and they have as much confidence in me as I do like this this brand or this team. So um, I'd like for that to be the case for a while, and I think it will be. I think the one thing that it'll be a weird moment, but I think there's gonna be a moment down the road, kind of like what Scuba did. Like I think there'll be someone who I see that is going to be the next captain, and there'll be a time where I could probably still remain the captain and keep that on my chest. But it would be a nice like passing of the torch and let someone else take the squad because it's really important to have that development. So if I see that opportunity, I don't want that to be lost. But I'm well away from just standing on the sidelines and coaching because that I don't know how they do it sometimes. Like some of the guys who played and they step away from it, it's tough. Like have to see it on the sideline and go, well, I just want to change the game like in there. So
Mm.
I'll
Especially
100% be a
Hodes. Hodes
yeah,
says all
well
sorts
exactly.
of stuff to opposition players that he really shouldn't. That makes me a little
He
uncomfortable too, if I'm being honest.
yeah, no, he's one of the and that's an unfortunate story because we're the same age. He's not very old, and like for him to have such a horrific injury that I'll be the first to suggest that he doesn't play again just to be safe. Um,
Mm.
so it's also saving a lot of other people on the opposition teams because
Oh boy, is it
he
ever?
he really fucking he and like not just physically, but man, does that guy have some great banter in the field. Like
Yeah.
if anyone's getting into anyone, like he rips
Mm.
into their soul. I've seen some guys who like kind of chihuahuas barking a lot, like thinking that they were hot shit, and then he just rips into their soul and they don't talk for the rest of the game, which is it's not what you
Mm.
want. You
No,
want
it's
them
like
to
you see
have
a
like
ghost.
yeah, I just like oh shit, like okay, sorry, like I won't speak. But no, it's coaching is definitely going to be somewhere down the line. I love coaching people. I love coaching people right now. Like I think it's great to have to be a leader and to try and bestow a lot of whatever I've built in the last 8 years to some of the newer guys. And even some of the guys who played like it's fun actually teaching Australians who've played their whole lives how Canadian footy is because it's a different game.
Mm.
Like explaining what structure we have, but maybe not it may not be just like hitting guys in the middle of the field or like going down the corridor. It's like sometimes you have to hit that wide side because the ball's going to be spilling out. There's not going to be someone who's going to hit that like hit you on the tip. It goes a different way. Or
Mm.
tackling is different because the ball's on the ground so often. Um, I think it's a good position to be in for the next few years of just like doing what I can to bring the Rebels to a good spot. This year has been very the biggest goal for me is just getting the team back after COVID. And I think we've done a really good job so far. I had a couple of the Rebels legends reach out and show a little appreciation, which is really nice because it was a grind. It's been a grind. Just
Mm.
containing and making sure that we have as many people as we can that are still part of it and like building a future. So I'd like to win. I'd like to win for sure. And then I'd like to win this year. That'd be pretty awesome. Not in my coin flips, obviously. I,
Mm.
I think I may have mentioned this to you, but I'm 0 for 6 on coin tosses. Um,
Yeah.
I did win one, but he chose it
That's
and
not a
he
win.
lost.
You
So
can't count that as a win.
no. Okay, yeah. So that's where I'm at right now. That's obviously kept me up at night this year.
Yeah.
Something
Put you in a
I
real
look
like
to
mental pretzel.
I just like you want to be the best for everyone, right? And I feel like starting off on that note, sometimes I'll run back and I'll just tell everyone we're going that way, and then make it seem like I won. But I definitely didn't win, and they chose which we were going. So,
are you a heads or a tails guy?
I think my issue is like I don't know.
You have
anymore.
to just stick with one. You just have to stick with one.
Well, I'm a tails guy, but then people have been telling me like, no, go with heads. And I think those times I went with heads and tails. So like obviously you need to just stick with one, 50-50. So I just gotta drown out the noise, focus, and try to like really like think about what I want to choose for that for heads tails. Yeah. So that's been my biggest
one trick. Now, obviously, the team that wins, the captain will point. Right now, if let's say they point straight away, you point the other way.
Point that same way. Oh, really?
No, you point the other way, because then there will be a couple of guys.
Yeah.
There'll be a couple of guys that'll be like, oh, all right, boys, we're kicking the far end. And then he obviously knows that, because you just come in there and go, yeah, I pointed to that end. Like that's nice. You saying I chose that end when you didn't really, but you just got to be careful with your words by saying I pointed to that end that we're kicking. You'll confuse a few people. There's not a lot of brain surgeons in that club.
No, I like that. I think another option would be just to hold off, so that if they ask me like heads or tails, I'll let it hit the ground, and I'm like, he'll obviously be quite upset, but then at least I get my odds in order of like, okay, that was a head, so the odds have now increased that it's going to be tails. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know how that actually works. I just kind of pulled out of my ass. I don't know what the odds are on that. I think it's still 50-50, but
probably, yeah. I'm not a numbers guy, but it does sound like a 50-50. And another one, if you want to do it, is let's say you lose and they point that way, just be like, ooh, okay. Or just say like, oh, great result. Or just to like
a win. It's a win.
Yeah, a little bit of mental warfare. So like he may have won that. He's going back to the huddle thinking, oh, I fucked up. Or like, why does he want to kick? Why is he happy? Like, do you know what I mean? Like just a little, if you're going to be in a bit of a mental bind, like you got to put someone else in to make it like level the playing field.
True. Yeah. Because 18 guys aside, you don't want like one guy who's been like mental turmoil on our side. Especially like the captain. Yeah. No, it's a good call. I like that. I think there's a lot that I can work on that side. See, I told you, I've learned things, been learning things every year, learning things every day. So I appreciate it.
No, you're welcome. And thank you very much for coming on. Absolutely great story. Very heartwarming. I love your attitude. I love your mindset. I'm excited to watch you play against America and beat America. And hopefully to see you. What's the Premiership Cup called? The AFL Ontario. I should know because I was so damaging in it. Is it called something? The something trophy?
I don't think it is. It could be actually, but I actually don't know.
Oh, there you go.
So now you gotta do that whole. I think
But either way, either way, bring home a premiership, and hopefully I'll be over there wearing the black and white next season.
I'm locking you in. Why have you on camera here?
That's fine. I'm coming back anyway. I'm coming back to claim my number 33 jersey.
It'll be waiting for you.